Thank you all.
We're continuing with the BBC debate.
This one comes from Lorenzo Barba.
Lorenzo Barba.
I'm struggling
Barba
to find
is
a house.
Arabic word
I've noticed
for
the roads are busier,
lion.
and it's almost impossible to get a doctor's appointment. I think immigration is partly to blame. What are the parties going to do about immigration?
Well, this is one for Farage, isn't it?
Lorenzo, for that, and I'm going to turn first to Stephen Flynn.
So
Stephen Flynn, part of SNP, say
in respect of your area. I'm afraid I don't
migrants
know it very
welcome.
well, but let me say a few home truths, particularly to some members of this panel. Migration is absolutely essential to our public services. It's absolutely essential to our businesses, and it's absolutely essential.
And applause! Second time this evening.
And what we need to do is end the demonisation
of
migration.
Farage doesn't like that.
We have a declining working age population, despite a net number of people moving from the rest of the UK to Scotland. We need migrants, and this race to the bottom on migration, driven by Nigel Farage, followed by the Conservative Party, and hotly chased by the Labour Party, does not serve Scotland's interests. And it does not serve your interests either. So rise up against it. Do as Keir Starmer did in 2020 and talk about the benefits of migration. It's important to our fundamental aspects of life.
To be clear, any voter in Scotland who wants lower immigration should vote for other parties.
I think any voter in Scotland who wants to impact our economy, impact our NHS, should vote for the parties who want to cut migration, which is the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, and Nigel Farage. And this is the consequence of us being led down the garden path by the right wing in British politics for far too long. We need to stand against it. We need to promote our economy, promote our public services, and to do so by promoting migration.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And we don't hear that often enough.
I'm on a platform tonight with 6 other people whose parties have been wholly unconcerned with the issue of immigration. They think that to even question it somehow makes you a bad person. Let's get back to Lorenzo's question. Let's deal with some logic, shall we? From the end of the 1940s
a novelty for you.
until Mr. Blair got to power, listen to the numbers. You probably don't know them.
That was a comment by Stephen Flynn.
For 50 years, net migration into Britain was 30 to 40,000 a year. Then Tony Blair gets in, decides to open the doors. We get net migration for the period of the Labour government of 2.7 million people come in that period. Then we get the Conservatives, elected in 2010, 2015, 2017, telling us they'll reduce net migration to tens of thousands a year. 4.3 million the Conservatives have led in. Most of those that come in are not directly productive members of the economy. Most of those that come in are actually dependents. And Lorenzo, the truth of it is, this ought to be the immigration election. Because whether we talk about housing, whether we talk about the fact that rents are up between 20 and 30%.
There are people in the audience shaking their heads at this.
Whether we talk about the roads, whether we talk about infrastructure, we are living through a population crisis, an increase of 10 million people since Mr. Blair came to power.
The British are not having babies.
Frankly, it's making us poorer, it is diminishing our quality of life, and it's nothing to do with race or any of those issues. It's to do with actually putting the interests of our communities first. We need to get net migration, and that means, by the way, people come and people go. We need to get net migration down to an even figure for the next few years, and maybe then we can hope to catch up with housing, with health, and many of those things.
Most of those coming to the UK today are on work visas or are international students.
About 50% of those that come are dependents. Whether they're coming with work
visas, the rules are changing.
Family
Family
reunions. We've even had under the Conservatives students coming and bringing their mum. The whole thing's been unbelievable.
So don't buy this.
Unbelievable.
Nigel Flynn, you've had a say on this. Can I turn to Rina Furworth, please?
Nigel Farage wants to make this an immigration election for his own self-interest. Let's change the tone.
Again, applause.
Let's change the tone of the debate on immigration. You know, too much of it is framed around, frankly, the bigotry of people like Nigel Farage.
Please. Is that the best you can do?
Penny Mordaunt can't stand up to Nigel Farage because she wants her party to be like Nigel Farage.
They're the opposite.
Angela Rayner can't stand up to Nigel Farage because of the shift in her party to the right. Plaid Cymru will stand up to Nigel Farage.
Open doors, everyone come.
And applause again.
Of course we need
Benefits
rules.
for everybody. Lovely.
Of course we need rules on borders. Wales controlled its own borders during COVID. That's what countries do. But we need those around proper processing of asylum applications. We need to stop the vile and
the laziness of the Home Office.
We need safe passage into this country, and we need to realise that we need immigration for the interests of our health system, our care system, and our economy.
Penny Mordaunt, do you...
And applause again.
Nigel Farage's charge of broken promises from your party on immigration?
Well, look, this might be an immigration election, but it is definitely going to be a cost of living election. And one thing that we can do to help the gentleman who asked the question is about ensuring that you keep more of your money. We will cut your taxes. Labour will put your taxes up.
Was that the question?
You having more agency, being able to get onto the property ladder, that is.
Penny Mordaunt, I am going to remind you of the question.
Election.
Lorenzo's question.
Just with regard
the problems that he set out. He said, I think immigration is partly to blame. What are the parties going to do about immigration?
So immigration is too high. And what we need to do is have a balance between some of the issues that have been raised already. The best way to do this is to get Parliament, your Parliament, elected.
If immigration is so high, then we would have enough people working in the NHS. We would have enough people filling the jobs that need to be filled. But we have vacancies.
Immigration puts on communities, as the question made very clear. That will be informed by experts, but it will be Parliament that decides. And because the numbers are too high over the next
this
few
is
years,
a mantra. It's not a fact.
That is a clear plan, a clear guarantee. We've already ended free movement. We've done many things. That is the logical next step.
And now the Conservative Party is attacking students again, as it did under Theresa May when she was Home Secretary.
They have no clue. They haven't done any of the work on the workforce. They've had 14 years to work this out. They have nothing to offer you. Controlled numbers and a cap.
You've had 14 years to solve the problem, if you think there's a problem.
Let's let Angela Rayner respond to that charge of having no plan. Your party's only said that there'll be a significant cut, but there are no numbers, no time frame attached to that.
I mean, I love the spin on that. 14 years and you failed, trebled net migration figures. But what I would say to Lorenzo is that the problems with housing, the roads and GPs and non-public services is decimation that the Tories have done to our public services.
Your leader campaigned for free movement.
Yes, it's the problem with the services, not having more migrants.
Campaigning for free movement. These guys are not going to control immigration.
And we've said that the Rwanda scheme, look, yesterday...
Rwanda, we've just heard about people who are living in Rwanda because they were sent there by our government, and they feel they are in prison.
Which would have been 300 for the whole year, by the way.
Those numbers are small. They're small compared to legal migration.
We would scrap the Rwanda scheme. We would put that money into the Border Force Command, which will be
not enough.
Smash the gangs, because we need to do that. And
need to put that money into building houses. We need to put that money into services in general, utilities.
Industrial and skills strategy. Labour will put one in place so that we can fill the gaps and make sure that we have people in those jobs. People come to this country and they're propping up many of our services because we haven't trained the people to do that. But this is
training people takes time. We need to train people and we need to bring in migration to fill the numbers.
Dare I say, Nigel Farage. Keir Starmer said the other day that Rishi Sunak was the most liberal prime minister when it comes to immigration.
They can talk all they like.
I'd like to hear now from Carla Denyer and from Daisy Cooper.
So, Lorenzo, your question started by talking about houses, roads and GPs. We need to build 150,000 social homes a year to tackle the crisis in our housing. The roads are in a mess because the Conservatives have cut local authority budgets between 25 and 40%. That's why public services are on their knees. And the Conservatives promised at the last general election to recruit 6,000 GPs. We now have fewer GPs per head right across our country. That's why our public services are on their knees.
So is he wrong to say that he thinks immigration is partly to blame?
But I would say that actually it's to do with the Conservatives' choices, because at the same time as eroding all of that investment, they've made choices to give a tax cut to the big banks. But on the issue of immigration, I would say the Conservatives have made a complete mess, both of migration system, but also of the asylum system. And we have the worst of both worlds. We have people who are desperate, who are fleeing war and persecution, arriving on small boats. And at the same time, we have our NHS, our social care, we have hospitality and engineering. None of them can recruit the staff that they need with the skills to boost our economy. So Liberal Democrats have said on care
of them
in
are
particular,
being held in hotels,
higher
asking
minimum
for
wage,
asylum
£2
and
higher,
longing to work.
Invest in our care workers, give them status, give them progression in the workforce. And then when we still have skills gaps, invite people in from other countries and welcome them when they come.
Okay. Carla Denyer, what would the Green Party do about immigration?
First of all, reflecting back to what Nigel Farage said, how cold-hearted do you have to be to not want people who are coming here on work visas to be able to bring their husbands or wives or infant children?
Absolutely.
The Green Party
you would not want to cut immigration?
The Green Party takes a totally different approach to immigration. When it's hard to get an affordable home, when it's hard to access public services like a GP, when the roads are poorly maintained, I can absolutely understand, Lorenzo, why you're angry about these things. I am too. But I am clear that the reason for these services being run into the ground is not people coming here, whether they're coming here fleeing violence and persecution as asylum seekers, or whether they're coming here to work in many of our understaffed sectors like health and social care. If you meet a migrant in the NHS, they're more likely to be treating you, as I was the last time I saw a GP, than being ahead of you in the queue.
And applause again.
Migration's been a good thing for this country. And so in the Green Party, our immigration policy is not about arbitrary numbers. That's why we're not talking about caps. Instead, it's about making our immigration system fairer and more humane.
Carla Denyer, thank you very much. So we still have quite a few more questions to come. Meanwhile, I want to mention that online on the...
There we are. Immigration. And it's not as clear-cut. The idea that everybody wants to stop immigration, the idea that everybody is worried about immigration is not true. Listen to the applause at this debate. Immigration has been ramped up as the bogeyman of politics, as a diversion from years of underinvestment in essential services. And Brexit has not helped. And I find it so extraordinary. In that debate, not one person dared to use the B word. Not one person used that word. It's extraordinary. It's as if it's banned from being mentioned. B. Brexit, Brexit, Brexit. We need to turn that round. We need to, either Brexit needs to work. There was a fellow in Newsnight the other night who claimed that Brexit was working. Absolute loony. Absolute loony. He needs to wake up, grow up, and look around. Brexit does not work. And maybe Brexit might have worked if twits like Lord Frost were not put in charge of negotiating Brexit. But that's the reality. The reality is it was negotiated by twits. And what we've got is the worst of both worlds. We've got a Brexit, and it's an appalling Brexit. And we are suffering. We have voted ourselves into pay cuts and penury and into extra paperwork that is unnecessary. We could have avoided all of that. We could have avoided all of that if we didn't vote for Brexit, but we could certainly have avoided all that if we had a more grown-up Brexit instead of a Brexit defined by slogans and stupidity. And migration isn't the problem. Migration is probably the answer.